What's going on, guys? It's GZ. Welcome to my channel. So if you are somewhat like me who likes to pump your damage by a lot, then you're definitely going to like these builds. I have shared this in the past, but I thought I should bring a refresher with a in-depth detail explaining everything. With these builds I can reach pretty much 600 million damage per mirrored and destroy pretty much every raid boss. We can easily melt them down. And I have recorded a couple of clips as well to showcase it to you guys to see how quickly you can deal damage with these builds, and it is really going to be hard for most players to keep up with you because there are a lot of things which are working together to make these builds work, and I will be explaining everything. But you can clearly see that within few seconds my damage was raising like a lot faster. And also keep in mind, this was me helping out the group. They were not the DPS guys, I was just helping them out, so I thought it is quite a nice opportunity for me to record this and showcase it to you guys that with these builds you can pretty much carry the entire raid, and this damage is also going to be great for you to utilize in gauntlets because it will help a lot. Faster damage mean that the bosses are going to drop a lot faster, and when it comes down to the normal bosses, they are not even the issue because they don't have enough health to survive more than couple seconds. Alright, so I will be breaking down everything to you guys, starting from our Paragon setup for these builds. So these are the nodes which we are using here: Sharp Eye, Careful Aim, Unseen Dynamism, Gifted, and Uncanny. The idea here is to keep distance so you can deal the most damage. You would require at least 10-yard distance to deal most damage, and also having a more distance is actually beneficial for your strafe as well after getting some changes or strafe, because the furthest you are, the more damage you deal. So having a distance and these two nodes is actually really good. Then Unseen Dynamism, Gifted, and Uncanny doesn't require you to stay at distance. They will just need you to hit couple of times at any target, and 10 hits should give you the most stack damage, and it should be 5. For Demon Hunter, getting couple of stacks is not an issue. Within a second you will have that. And some players actually advise to use Unseen Dynamism, I mean the impulsive skill node or spell surge. I would not advise that because for Demon Hunter, getting these stacks is not an issue. You can get them back within a second. Therefore, using this one is a waste in terms of getting more damage output. Demon Hunter at least don't need that if you already have so many skills that can hit within a second. And also the lightning damage isn't so that great in my opinion. This is why you can keep these two off and instead get these two to get the most optimal damage output. Then for the legendary skill, I normally use Overload. You could go something with something else as well. Lightning Rod is another good option if you don't want Overload. However, it doesn't give you much damage output, so Lightning Rod and Overloaded are both good options there. Then moving forward to our warband buff, which I use for raids gauntlets. Whenever I am playing gauntlets or raid, I would switch to attacker because it would give you damage done increased by 3.5 second. And if you have couple nice remnant bonus for that as well, you can get some extra critical chance and more buffs from it, so it is actually nice. And here it says increase critical hit chance by 3% while above 70% of your total life. So you can see if you have full health you can do a lot more damage, and also critical hit damage by 10% while your critical chance is greater than 70%. You guys would be thinking if it is possible. Well, it is with the rolling consequence, mother lament, getting more critical chance from your uh, specialization of the Paragon and runes. You can easily get that for a couple of seconds, and even this buff would actually comes in action and you can pretty much reach 100% critical chance. Alright, let's talk about the legendary gem and the idea behind them. Why do I use them? And keep in mind, I use the same legendary gem setup for my PvP as well. I don't change them when I'm playing Battleground. This is exactly what I use. The only thing which I use different as a gem is I use an auxiliary on my Gloom cast because the build which I use doesn't trigger Gloom Cask, and for that reason alone I just use the auxiliary on my Gloom Cask, which is Spiteful Blood, and it helps you prevent taking damage from primary. In my opinion, this is not the greatest option, but it's better than nothing, because if someone tries to trigger primary damage on you, it actually does give you some chance to run away. So that is the idea overall for using auxiliary on Gloom Cask. But other than that, this is what my setup looks like, and if you would look closely, then you would notice that I have Colossal Angel rank 6, which I upgraded to quality 4 with the Colossal Surge event, of course. Rank 10 Moon Skull, I upgraded it when it came out, one of the best gem out there. Gloom Cask, amazing gem for strafe setup for Demon Hunter. Bloodsoaked Jade gives you mobility and damage. Bottle Hope is great, gives you some more cooldown on your skills, which is really nice. Wolf Horde triggers a lot because you'll be able to hit so much so faster that the stacking this 5 times within a second is not an issue. Then Roiling Consequence rank 7, one of the best gem out there to boost all your 5-star or any legendary gem to perform even better. And lastly, Fervent Fang requires you to have 10 stack, and then again the stack it requires to give you the full damage output can be acquired within a second because Demon Hunter damage speed is really fast, so this is not an issue. One of the best gem out there. It gives you 30% increased damage against bosses, 24% from the stack, and 6% against elite and boss monsters. So 30% increased damage in raids and gauntlet. And the idea behind is that as a demon hunter, to obtain such a high damage output, you would need a damage booster or damage enhancer legendary, or not the legendary, 5-star gem setup. And I am not focusing on dots at all. This is a complete different direction with the highest damage output. And keep in mind, resonance itself is not going to give you more damage output if you don't have your buffs unlocks from within the gems. Like primary damage is a huge buff, getting more 3% damage. I am working on them to unlock my skill damage as well, and in future I will even unlock the damage done increased by 1% per party, which I actually have done it on my rolling consequence. Then I have done that on my wolf hilt, and I even have, I think, unlocked a couple more buffs. But the idea is that just don't focus completely on upgrading your legendary gem. I think rank 6 or 7 is a good spot to upgrade your 5-star gems as a mid spender or slightly higher. Then focusing inside the gems to unlock those buffs is essential as well, because 3%, 3%, 3%, 3%, this doesn't give you, but 3% here, 3% here and here, it is insane increased amount of primary damage and skill damage which you can get. And since I have the party damage increase in 2 of my gems, that is like 6 or 8% increase in damage when I am playing in 4-player party. So this way the damage enhance is amazing. And also keep in mind, to make this build work, rolling consequence in my opinion is essential, because you would require a burn effect on enemy to trigger one of the SN, which I will talk about later. But yeah, rolling consequence is what you need. But then again, if you don't have this gem set up exactly as I do, then there are a couple other options in my opinion which you could use, such as Berserker Eye, one of the best gem out there to give the damage output. Really friendly for free to play player to acquire this and upgrade this to rank 10. I would advise not to waste your gem slot with quick shot. You don't need that. It is only going to prevent you to reach the next height of your damage. Yeah, channeling is of course going to be extended, but in my opinion it is not worth it. You guys should definitely test it out versus the damage dealer gem, and you will see what I am trying to say here. But yeah, Berserker Eye is one option that you can acquire if you don't have my gem set up. Then the second one would be this one, Entropic Well. It would give you more skill damage, and it can goes up to 18% skill increase damage, and also it would give you 2% attack speed. So that's that. So you already have 2 options from 1-star gem. Power and Command is a amazing gem as well. It would alternate between primary damage and skill damage, and since Demon Hunter is using empowered skills which works with the primary, and skills are working towards with the primary, it doesn't matter when it alternate. If it does, your primary is going to take the damage boost, and if it alternate with the skill damage, then your pain sower, your other skills like Chakram, Vengeance is going to come in action. So this gem will always be providing you with the damage boost for Demon Hunter. Bloody Reach is a good option, but then again you will have to be staying at distance. 8 yard is not that much anymore, because Demon Hunters can stay at distance and do a lot of damage. So these options are in my opinion really good, and you can give it a try. Pain Clasp is a good one, but it will stop working instantly once the harmful effect is going to go away when the rolling consequence go down. So I wouldn't suggest this gem. And yeah, this is all what I have to suggest. There is a Spectre Glass, but to use it at its best you would have to increase the harmful effect duration, and for this build we are not doing that, so I would not suggest Spectre Glass. Alright, let's talk about our curse properties, then we will get into Reforge, what I am using, and I will explain everything. Here you can see that I am using 6 pieces of Detested, which will create a dark void beneath you that lasts for 6 seconds when you use a skill that causes loss of controls. Enemies take 20% of your damage every second. So this specific setup isn't going to work with this build because we are not going to cause total loss of control. However, I use this with my escape build for PvP, and in that, when you cause a total loss of control, this sometimes trigger in a quite nice spot where it deals a lot of damage. So having this is really good for PvP, and since we don't have the option to keep the different loadout for quest properties, this is what I prefer to use for quest properties, using it only primary for my PvP. However, atrophied or whatever the name is, I cannot pronounce at its best, or I know I am butchering it, but anyways, when you deal continuous damage to an enemy, a dark field will appear under them, dealing 20% of your damage every second for 6 seconds to any enemies that remain in every area. This, however, does work with your strafe builds and trigger on the ground, and for that it is actually good for PvP and PvE both. But keep in mind, I am using still with the mindset of using it for the PvP, because what I have noticed that when these curse activities, not the activities, properties triggers, most players don't pay much attention to them, and therefore sometimes they just end up dying, or it could trigger on a area where there are a lot of players and it is hard to spot these curse properties, and therefore they're going to receive a lot of damage and therefore might even end up dying or losing some of their cheat. That so this property setup works really nicely for PvP. Moving forward to my Reforge, I am using 2 separate loadout. First loadout is obviously for my PvE, which is I am going to show here. The second loadout is for my PvP, and here you guys can see I am using primary damage increase, all skill damage increase, critical damage increase, duration of beneficial effects increase, and attack speed. This is exactly the setup which I have on all my 8 gear pieces, and they are pretty much maxed out on all of them, or I have done my best without spending onto them just by playing Paragon, collecting my Reforge stone every now and then from those seasons and just work on them, and took me a lot of time. So the idea behind it that I wanted to improve my primary damage even further, and since we are using a lot of skills that work with Demon Hunter with the primary and with the strafe, all skill damage is really good. Then talking about the critical hit damage, if you have Mother Lament, Rolling Consequence, you will see that getting increased critical hit damage is really nice, because if you don't have the crit chance, then crit damage is not going to trigger. So having the crit chance is really important, and with this build we have a lot of that. Then duration of beneficial effects is really important. Vidus Urge itself is not enough in my opinion, and therefore you can take it to the next level. So having the duration of beneficial effect increase in Reforge is also very important. And finally, attack speed overall works good for Demon Hunter, because you could say attack speed is actually a friend for Demon Hunter. And talking about beneficial duration wise, so important, if you would look at these skills here which I am activating, they would last pretty much 100% uptime because of the help of beneficial duration and some cooldown, and you can get from the Reforge. And not only that, you can even get them from your chest piece, pants. Couple of your set items would also give you beneficial duration. So this is actually really important, and that is what my setup looks like. And now let's talk about my secondary attributes and also the runes. So when we come down to our secondary attributes, you would notice that armor penetration and armor are the highest that I have. In my opinion, Demon Hunter need a lot of armor for PvP purposes, and armor penetration works best for both worlds, meaning PvE and PvP. So if you are someone who is new player, mid spender, then focusing on armor penetration can never go wrong, because it is going to help you increase your crit hit damage, will make your enemies weaker for PvP, and as well as inside the PvE you will feel a lot stronger. Your damage number will be a lot higher when you have the armor penetration really high. I am at 55% and I am working on it. Armor is really important overall for PvP. You wouldn't feel much need of it in PvE, because in Gauntlets you are going to get one shot anyways, and for rest of the activities in PvE I don't think armor plays a big role. However, everyone have their own opinion, but one thing which you cannot go wrong with is armor penetration. So stacking it as high as possible is really good. Then potency in my opinion is somewhat not important, unless you're taking a approach with Demon Hunter that require a lot of harmful effect damage, which I am not doing at all in this build, and therefore potency is not really important when you have the damage booster, damage enhancing legendary gem. Instead, you could or you should focus on getting more resistance instead of getting potency. This way you can protect yourself from harmful effect coming from other players in PvP, able to deal a lot of damage if you have armor penetration, and if you have armor you can withstand even physical damage, melee damage, or anything like that which does not involve harmful effect. So these three for Demon Hunter are really good: armor penetration, resistance, and armor for PvP. And for PvE, focusing on getting critical hit chance is really important, as well as critical hit damage, which I do have from my Reforge, which I have shown. Same attack speed is coming from there. Cooldown reduction, which I do have on couple of my gear pieces, set pieces there. Movement speed is what we are getting from Bloodstroke Jade, and this is what it looks like. So critical chance is a must have on your gear pieces. And now let's talk about the runes quickly. So most people might think that the best runes are the one that that are not even available inside the market, or even if they are the most expensive one. Well, that is not the case. What you should be focusing on runes for Demon Hunter is that what kind of buff that they provide, which would benefit you overall, like beneficial duration increase is what we are getting here from the rune, and attack speed, and I have both of them on my Reforge, and Further improving this from your rune is great. You can get this rune for 2700, which is quite cheap, and you can put this same rune inside your shoulder and helm. Then another yellow rune which I am using for, where is it, rune, for the chest piece, and it explode. Monster have 9% chance to explode on that. Overall, all the chest runes are somewhat okay, not one of the best ones, so you can just settle down with the yellow one and it will still give you some really nice stats buff on your chest piece, which is somewhat, I think, 6%, so that is fine. Pent rune isn't important either in my opinion. There are many options, but I think the yellow one ATI is just fine. However, your offhand would require a really good rune, which is ZUH, and it gives you increased damage versus elite by 4%, damage to full enemies by 5%, but what is more important, that you get critical chance from it by 4%, and you can use them on both of your offhand. So getting 8% extra critical chance is important as well in my opinion. It will further improve your overall damage output. Without the help of rolling consequence and mother lament, you would still have a lot of critical chance to keep on going when both of those gems goes on cooldown. And here Far is what we are using basically because it has skill damage increase, so you can get 6% increased skill damage from it, and also damage increase by 2% to enemies below 30% life, which can stack up to 4%, so that is actually really nice. And now let's talk about our eternal affixes, and in my opinion this is somewhat a slippery slope because the RNG is not in your favor. However, now since we have the option to craft those items, the best one in my opinion are somewhat, I would say, you have to keep in mind that not all the affixes are available on certain gear pieces, so you should always look inside the option here. Let's say for helm, if you are looking for, I would advise 100% to get escape, gain a shield that absorbs 12,000 damage. This is going to help you for your PvP, and in my opinion for PvP it is actually rather really nice. Impale Century, Spinning Chakram, Knife Trap, all those looks nice, but escape is what you should be focusing on your helm if you are going to craft, or for the helm escape is actually a better option. For shoulder there are many options here, but once again you need escape once more to get that. If it's possible, if you get it, then it is really nice because stacking it up to 4x is definitely going to give you more survival ability. Moving on to our chest piece, here we have 7 options, and out of all of them there are 2 best options. Whichever you get, just settle with it. Either Stave has a 15% chance to fire an additional bolt dealing 8000 damage, or Vengeance applies a mark to enemies for 3 seconds that burst with every 3 attack from Vengeance dealing 8000 damage. So triggering no more than once every 0.5 seconds. So this is overall a better option over a Stave, but if you get any of these 2, just settle with it and you'll be happy. For the pent itself, then once again there are 2 same option I would advise, and everything else you can just ignore. For the main hand, let's go and see what are the options which are present to us. And here once again, when we look into this, there is nothing pretty much. Whichever you get, just settle with it. You really don't have to focus too much on the eternal affixes for your main hand. Going to the offhand here, once again, strafe is a better option, or vengeance, these two. So you see, I am either asking you guys to get the strafe, vengeance, oh, we do have the escape as well, or get the escape one. It depends on your playstyle what you prefer, but these three in my opinion are the best option out there for Demon Hunter. Alright, now let's talk about the set items, attributes, and legendary assets. Starting off, Seas of Swan Gold is what I use for PvE only. So here, I don't really care what attributes I am going to get here. However, Fortitude is still a really good option. I would advise you to get Fortitude because it would give you armor and armor penetration. However, I did not bother to craft many and saved my wrist for later difficulty. But yeah, Fortitude is, in my opinion, is the best option that you can get on your set items, and all my PvP gear actually have Fortitude, which I always focus on. Since I use my Vitus Arch for PvP, I always make sure that I have two attributes set item which gives me the most armor penetration and armor. And on the second one, it really doesn't matter what you get there, but yeah, Seas of Swan Gold is what we are using. And also, if you get some more cooldown or beneficial duration, that is actually really nice and would improve your overall consistency of skills and damage. What it does is continually channeling a skill against the same enemy, gradually increase the damage of that skill up to a maximum of 30%. So let me explain furthermore what is channeling for those who do not know. You see this bar when I am attacking? This is what channeling looks like. So this is what is working with. If you're not using this, then this set piece will not work. So it is only going to work with this build setup if you are using channeling. And also, after you stop channeling a skills, enemy hit by it take an additional explosion of damage for 30% of the damage dealt to them by that channel skill. So when you stop, they are going to get the explosion. With my build setup, and for me, sometime monster takes a critical hit of 18 million. So that is a huge damage number if it hit critical damage, but it varies differently for every single player. So we are using 4 pieces of Seas of Swan Gold for this build, and make sure that you get some cooldown and beneficial duration on them. Here, this is Seed of Swan Gold, and I have nearby enemies damage increase because I don't think there are any other option good enough for me to enchant them. So yeah, I didn't bother much there. Then my second 4x set piece is Vitus Arch, which is increase the duration of all beneficial skills on you or your party members by 30%. Since I am not providing any buff to my party, this is not going to work for party but for yourself only. And to explain furthermore, all these skills which you guys are seeing are actually buff skills, so Vitus Arch extend their duration so they last longer. Not only that, my Bottle Hope, Gloom Cask, Moan Skull, Colossal Engine, and Wolf Heot, Rolling Consequence, all these legendary gems are considered buff gems, meaning they would last longer than 6 seconds. For me, it almost lasts 11 seconds or between 11 to 10 seconds, but the highest I think you can go is up to 12 seconds, which is insane. Not everyone can do that, even myself, I have not done it, but yeah, it is possible, and for that reason alone, you would need Ritu's Urge to extend the duration of your beneficial skills. Then increase the target attack speed by 30% for 3 seconds each time you use a skill to grant a beneficial effect to yourself or party member. Here it says it is going to last for 3 seconds, but since it is buff itself, if I activate that, it is going to actually last longer than 3 seconds for me. You can clearly see, hold on, 6 seconds. It is lasting for 6 seconds for me. So instead of 3 is the amount of lasting is double. So you can see beneficial duration is really important here, and that is what my focus overall with the set items and how they works all together. And now let's move on to our last part, which is legendary essences itself. Starting off, hold on, we would go into another tab, profile. Here we will click skills, and here I will be able to explain it further more. So there are a couple of things you guys need to keep in mind. For the attributes, go with the fortitude always. This is important that you select fortitude in all your gear pieces. Don't go for the combat rating, always go for the fortitude itself, because you cannot expect your secondary gems to give you buff on your armor penetration. You actually can get a lot more from your set items and legendary essences. And if you don't have the fortitude, I would highly advise not to use that piece. Just throw it away or keep it for challenge rifts. When you want to complete a higher challenge rift, use a gear piece with the higher combat rating, but other than that, always use the gear piece with the fortitude. This is going to overall make your experience for the demon hunter a lot better. And as you guys can see, my eternal affixes are escape are 4x4 for me, just like I have explained. I think I have some for the chakram as well, like 3x out of 4. So yeah, I am pretty much using optimized setup. And also keep one more thing in mind, critical chance should come with fortitude, and if it doesn't and you already have the fortitude on your gear piece, try to enchant and get the critical chance. But in my opinion, this is a hefty system, and sometimes it can even make you use it. It will make you to reroll more than 50 times to get the 2% critical chance. I had to done it like 51 times, and it was insane. So this is not a really friendly option for a lot of players, but if you're lucky enough to get fortitude and critical chance, always go with that, and you can get critical chance on your helm, shoulder, both main hands and both offhand. This is really important. And also for your chest piece and pent, getting the beneficial duration is also really important, because if you are using the buff setup and legendary gems are also buff, you should get a lot of buff duration, and that would work. So I hope I explained that. And now let's get into our essences itself. Here we are using the eyes ablaze. And what it does is multi-shot cause an explosion when hitting burning enemies, dealing 18,000 additional damage, increased by 90%. And awaken slot would give you 10% more damage on your multi-shot. Keep in mind this will not work unless you have rolling consequence, because with this gem the only gem that is providing you fire effect is rolling consequence, and without rolling consequence this helm is not going to work. So you definitely need a rolling consequence, and since it is one of the best gem out there inside Diablo Immortal, I'm sure a lot of players already have that, so it is going to work with that. The second main hand, the second ascent for the main hand which we are using, works for the multi-shot as well, and you do actually need that to make it work with your helmet. Multi-shot now empowers your primary attacks to fire multi-shot for a short time, and also furthermore increase damage for multi-shot if your slot is awakened, so that is really nice. And third ascent, which is for shoulder, once again it works with your multi-shot. It is going to do the rocket firing, which is amazing in my opinion. This is what it looks like when we activate our multi-shot and fire them. This is what it looks like. So amazing, does a lot of damage, so you definitely need that. So all these three essences are working for you multi-shot. And now the second essence, which is working for our spinning chakram, is only the offhand, and this by far gives you the best damage output when it comes down to offhand. Line jaw for chakram. Spinning chakram instead empowers you for several seconds, during which your primary attack launches chakram that bounce between and damage enemies. So this is what we are using, and also if you have awakened slot, it is going to further deal 10% more damage. Then our third skill is Strave, and for that we are using couple of essences. The first one is Sinful Vigor, which would give you primary attack restore 1.5% of strafe energy consumption reduced by 3.6%, and strafe damage increased by 10% if you have the awakened slot. And the second essence for the strafe we are using Pain Sower, and it does the magic for this build, because strafe now fires your primary attacks focus at the nearest enemy. Without it you won't be able to use your primary chakram or vengeance with strafe, so you actually need Pain Sower. Without it it will not work. Well, let's go back, and for the strafe there is one last essence which we are using, Unrelenting Furor, and it increased the duration of your strafe by 39%, further increased the damage of your strafe by 10% if you have the awakened slot. So lastly, our final essence is the Pent, which is Cough's Unrelenting Fury, and this requires you to have a awakened slot, otherwise you have should go with different option. If you don't have the awakened slot, then yeah, I don't think it will do you good. But if you do have the awakened slot, then you're going to get 10% more cooldown on your vengeance, and it would take it down to 15 seconds, or even better if you have more cooldown than me and more beneficial duration, because you can see for me vengeance lasts for really long, and only 4-second cooldown is what I have on it. And for that reason I am using this Pent, because it gives me 10% more cooldown. And further what it does is actually gives you another rocket with your vengeance when it is working. During vengeance, every 2 primary attack will cause you to launch 1 additional rocket that deals 8,616 damage. So this is how my setup working. I know that the video is really long, but I know that this build is going to last for the longest time, just like the last one which I shared some time back. So I'm sure for the newer players or the quant one or the one who are making their way back would definitely would want to get into the builds, knowing all the breakdown and details and what else is there for them to learn. This is why I made sure that everyone gets to learn something. For the obviously for the veteran players, they would know most of these things already or all of them, but for the newer players or the returning players or someone who just switched to Demon Hunter, they would definitely find these useful. So let me know what are your thoughts, give it a try, and with this I'll see you guys in my next one. Hope you guys find this setup useful, video useful with the build, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Until then, take care, have fun, and bye guys.